Like the driven snow, I have always been pure. Polite as Miss Manner.
Hello, YouTubers. Well, we have a couple of interesting events this week. One, the culmination of the mess at Evergreen State College over on the mainland. And the other, the burning of a high-rise in London and the shooting of a member of Congress and some of his aides at a baseball game in Arlington, Virginia. This brings up a couple of interesting questions about the social justice movement and the left in general. One, how are they going to survive? You see, the faculty at Evergreen College were pretty progressive, but they fell afoul of something. You see, continuing to push for increased status of people who are marginalized or people of color, whatever, is a good thing. But there becomes a tipping point where incessant demands, unreasonable demands by people, wind up with a sense of entitlement. And so now people are not looking for equality. They are looking for removal. You see, students of color are now to the point where they are demanding instructors of color. You can see this coming from a mile away. And quite frankly, it's not an unreasonable request. The people who are upset about this are the white, liberal faculty members who, having inculcated their students with these neo-Maoist ideals, find themselves on the receiving end instead of on the beneficial end of their project. So you see, folks, you've taught the kids they don't need you. So guess what? They're to the point they don't need you. In fact, they're demanding people who represent them and not some progressive whiteness. And they're going to get rid of you. It's not an unacceptable request, quite frankly. A place where students are of color are the majority, students of different groups of people, mainly from the marginalized parts of society, are the majority, will demand instructors and administrators who look out for their own interest. Just remember this, little lily white professorships over at Evergreen. You did this to yourselves. You forgot to mention the fact that the goal of integration is integration, and instead you have pushed the elimination of white people as though we were all some kind of enemy to anyone who's a marginalized person or a person of color. And so the kids believe it. And they feel threatened by the fact that they see no one but white people in positions of authority and in positions of instruction in their university. And they feel marginalized. And that's legitimate. Now, have the tactics they've been using legitimate? Well, they're borrowed from things like the Cultural Revolution of the 70s, which had really bad outcomes. But they are not unreasonable by any means, because you taught them these tactics to use them against evil conservatives and nationalists and anyone who doesn't agree with the globalist agenda. So enjoy having them used on yourselves. The left will eat its own. They're going to find themselves a recipient of the very tactics they have used for the past decades against their opponents, instead of trying to find common ground or working out some kind of reasonable compromise with people. You simply demonize and vilify those who oppose you, and you remove them. And you taught your kids this. I'm speaking in the sense that they're your students. So here in Hawaii, we have lots of different populations of people. And whites are the largest single group on the island, but we are by no means a quote-unquote majority, because we're only about 30 to 40% of the population, probably, if you count everyone. So we all have to learn, at least in some pragmatic way, how to work together and get along. We don't let race influence us that much. But you guys have made identity politics the part and parcel of your entire method. And so these kids think that identity politics is how you go about getting the things you need. And they don't see the downside because you never taught them the downside. And so they're going to reap the consequences. And it's going to be very hard for them. They're going to have a lot of negative outcomes because of what you have taught them, especially over the last 20 years or so with the Democratic Party adopting Alinskyite type practices. You're going to really make these kids suffer needlessly because the real world's not like your campus. And you can't just go around forcing people to do what you want. A bunch of old racist white guys found that out about 100 years ago. Now, moving on to our other incidents, let's talk about fake outrage. We've had a lot of fake outrage lately in the news. Bill Maher, Kathy Griffin, Tiger Woods, and then we had the continuing attacks overseas by Muslim extremists. Then we've had the recent attack here in Virginia by evidently a disgruntled Bernie man on some members of Congress while they were playing a baseball game. I really don't care if members of this federal government have to suffer. Quite frankly, the federal government is one long criminal obscenity. Its members are shit. And if you get shot in the street, as I remember, your favorite London mayor said that's part and parcel of living in a big city now. So since you employ these tactics on the people of this country, enjoy when you get a taste. I have no sympathy for you. Quite frankly, most of America's problems could be solved by nuking Washington, D.C. And all the outrage we get over these things. Oh my God, she had a picture of President Trump with his head cut off. Bull hucky. I won't say the other stuff because I'm trying to keep this decent enough so YouTube won't pull it. The federal government is a criminal organization. They are a bunch of armed thugs running around the world, murdering children, robbing you, setting up wars, revolutions to their benefit, and getting paid with your taxes. So they're no friends of yours. They're nothing we should laud or emulate. And their removal is to the benefit of humanity. So go right ahead and suffer, buddy. I understand Mr. Loudermilk of Congress is now calling for members of Congress to be able to carry guns in Washington, D.C. Tough shit. American people can't carry guns. Why should you? You're not a ruling class. You're representatives. It's time you started suffering like representatives. Maybe if you didn't import a bunch of foreigners who believe in hostile wartime ideologies, you wouldn't have these problems. How many thousands of Americans have died or been raped? And you do nothing. So suffer, bitch. Take that bullet in your ass and go fuck yourself.